What's up, interweb? RhyQuinn here, and welcome to the GBA Season 4 Week 5 recap. And as always, I am joined by Adam from TNA TV.
Hello, hello. This was the week of the very, very short matches. Most of them were just to the point, and none of them were more to the point than the first one that we're going to talk about. That was the Milwaukee Saucebucks versus the Real Morel. This was pretty much just a case of anything you can do, I can do better. Steve had some innovative stuff like HP flying Breloom to take on Chestnut, and it would have worked really well if it wasn't for the fact that I almost said Steve. Miguel had the Koba Berry, which reduces the flying super effectiveness of the move. It was just a case of every step of the way, Miguel was just 2 steps ahead and predicted everything that Steve wanted to do. It was unfortunate that Steve kind of forewent Mega Gardevoir, because that meant there was literally 0 checks to any kind of Hydreigon, let alone a Specs Hydreigon that Miguel brought. So it was a 4-0 victory for Miguel over Steve, and that was just kind of a slaughterfest there. But do you have anything to add to that?
Not much, honestly. You kind of pretty much covered everything there. There wasn't much you could do. Yeah, as you said, the Koba Berry, Chestnut, pulling through the Pursuit Trap against Cavalier, things like that. He just had things that for Steve, even Steve's innovative stuff, he thought of it and countered that accordingly. Exactly as said, anything you can do, I can do better. So Miguel, back to his winning ways, picking up a nice 4-0 victory over Steve. There's not much more to add to that, I don't think. So, with that said, we'll move on to the second match from this week, and that is the Winnipeg Aquajets and Hank the Pidgey taking on the Cincinnati Loudrits and Malvone. And Malvone staying undefeated, picking up a huge 4-0 victory over the Aquajets. And in this match, it was surprising, I think, for many people to see Malvone bring in Vivian, although it didn't really do anything in the match. That's not the point. He brought Vivian, which kind of, I think, threw Hank off a little bit. He's like, why has he brought Vivian? And he kind of brought everything that was weak to Mega Pinsir in the time that Hank didn't bring Mega Pinsir. So he really didn't have anything to deal with some of Malvone's threats, and he didn't expect him to be bringing Vivian or Gallade or things like that. And Gallade was the thing that really bit Hank in this match. It was I believe, a specially defensive substitute bulk up Gallade, and against the Alamamola, even I think 3 Scolds couldn't break Gallade's substitute, and it just bulked up all over the Alamamola, and he couldn't switch out for fear of a Drain Punch or things like that. And Gallade just managed to bulk up all over the Alamamola. The Alamamola got 3 Scold crits in a row, and two of them broke the Gallade substitute, but then it just subbed again. Got another crit, which still didn't break the substitute, and then just proceeded to bulk up all over it, Drain Punch, get health back, Ice Punching the Amoonguss, and just cleaning up the rest of Hank's team. Nothing he could really do to stop that Gallade. Once it started bulking up, it was just a straight up sweep from then on.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, you were talking about that he brought everything weak to Mega Pinsir. In fairness, Mega Manectric and Weevil do an okay job taking on Mega Pinsir. To check it, at least.
That's true, yes.
But I'd like to give a shout out for one of at least the viewers of Hank's side. I was reading through the comments, and a guy said a perfect analogy for Malvone in the GBA. And that guy was G Duran 27. Shout out to you. That Malvone is the Tim Duncan of the GBA. He's it probably won't make any sense to you, but he's not
English and things straight over my head.
He's not flashy. He's fundamental, and he just brings it every single week, and that's just honestly perfect for what Malvone does in the GBA. So I thought that was a really good analogy. But yeah, it was basically the Gallade show: sub, bulk up, profit. I mean, there's really not much more to talk about that one.
Yep, pretty much. Hank just could not do anything once that guy started setting up. People that have been saying, even, us, we're guilty of this, saying that, Malvone just keeps bringing standard sets, and, he's not being too creative and things like that. He's getting the wins, but he's not being super creative and all that stuff. Very, very creative this week, especially defensive Gallade with sub bulk up. It's not really not a standard set, but absolutely a great set to bring against Nike, obviously, this week, putting in the finest of work, getting 4 kills, 0 deaths, and just sweeping up the match. So, yeah, it was a great match overall.
We'll move on to the New Orleans Pelicans taking on the San Francisco Giants. I guess you can say big upset, even though I guess the record really isn't that crazy. But a big upset for the Giants taking a 2-0 win. That was a hell of a battle because you got to see something like Power Herb bounce Gyarados. Uh, Only in the GBA would you ever see that successfully work. I think John could have potentially brought it back had he brought HP Grass Raikou, or if he was Moxie Crocodile. He could have potentially brought that back at the end. Um, they both played extremely well through it. It just once that Mega Venusaur went down from the bounce, John didn't have any checks for a lot of the other stuff that Geo brought. It was really well played to bait in the Mega Venusaur to have that specifically to take him on. That was the real key thing from the match for me. What about you?
Yeah, completely agree again. And the Mega Venusaur, I feel, was one of, it was, again, John's so-called win condition in this match. He really needed it to stop some of Geo's bigger threats, like, Mega Venusaur, Mega Swampert. Yeah, Mega Venusaur to stop Mega Venusaur, yep. To stop Mega Swampert somewhat, and Gyarados and things like that. But that Power Herb bounce Gyarados was amazing. I love to see that. So props to Geo for that. And once that Mega Venusaur went down, he didn't have the answers he needed for the rest of Geo's team. And yeah, I agree on that. HP Grass Raikou, I was fully expecting him to have HP Grass Raikou. I saw Geo's side first, and I was like, he's going to have HP Grass Raikou. But unfortunately, he didn't. He switched out for, I believe it was HP Ground, I think he said it was.
HP Ground on Evire.
That's the one, yeah. He put in HP Ground for Electivire, but he didn't bring Electivire, so it didn't really affect the match too much. And I think Geo's tactic of saying whenever Kieran B was in, he's like, just kill it. Just get damage off on that thing, because he just did not have any switch-ins for that. I think that's the right thing to do, because Kieran B is such a huge threat, and I think it paid off for him. And I wasn't too surprised, but it seems like Geo was quite surprised that a Choice Banded Technician boosted Stab Bullet Punch from a Sizzle managed to take out Kieran B. Didn't really surprise me too much, but hey, that did not surprise me. But Sizzle picking up the mini sweep at the end to clean up the game, so a very good victory for Geo, 2-0 against the New Orleans Pelicans. I can't talk today. Moving on to the fourth match from this week, we have the Detroit Steel Wings and Crimson Seabad taking on Cooper and the Utah Jasmine. And Cooper picking up a 5-0 victory over the Steel Wings. And in this match, Nidoking putting in the absolute finest of work. Aggron picking up 2 kills once again. Cooper really showing he knows how to use his Aggron. And he brought Mega Charizard X, exactly the same one as he brought against Crimson before in the first match they played against each other. But unfortunately, Mega Charizard X, Vaporeon, and Togekiss did not see the field in this match. It was just the 3 Mons, Nidoking, Zapdos, and Aggron, just switching between them, and they managed to just dismantle the Detroit Steel Wings. Rhyperior being taken out from Nidoking's Earth Power, and Crimson just didn't have much for Cooper's team at all, and Cooper just able to take advantage of that and just dismantle him with the sheer amount of power that he had on his team in the form of Nidoking and Aggron. And even a specially defensive Zapdos that came in with toxic stalling shenanigans. It really worked for him at the end of the game to make sure he took down Kecleon. So Cooper played a very good game.
Yeah, some interesting things happened in that battle, such as Choice Scarf Gothitelle not outspeeding Nidoking, then tricking it to give it the Scarf so that Gothitelle couldn't outspeed. Jolteon couldn't outspeed the Nidoking. That's kind of how actually Nidoking walked away early game with 3 KOs. That really obviously put Crimson in a terrible situation. Really hard to play 3 against 6, especially against someone like Cooper. It was pretty much just another one of kind of those dismantling matches where you might have to just go back to your drawing board and look at where potentially the planning went wrong. But yeah, that's all I really have for it. It was a 5-0 victory. with really only 3 Mons playing for Cooper. So we'll move on to the next match, which was probably the longest one, I think, and even that
Yeah.
was short. And that was the Pittsburgh Piratatas versus the St. Louis Rempardos. And we have Dan staying undefeated with a 2-0 victory. Um, he got two kills, one apiece with his Walklor. They continued to pick up kills basically every week. Um, I really thought that the matchup was not there for Dan. Like I really thought that that Old Man Top had the matchup wise his number, and Dan was able to pull that out. It kind of sucked to see Salamence go down, like basically turn 3 maybe to an ice punch. But after that, it was he was playing 5-on-6, and he maybe could have brought it back if he had choice banded Azumarill. But Dan able to persevere through that and get himself a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, I really don't have much more to add on to that. I do think it was somewhat of an odd play on Tup's part to be in with Salamence against the Nidoqueen and go for a Dragon Dance, knowing full well that Nidoqueen could have either Ice Beam or Ice Punch, either or, and it just went straight for an Ice Punch and took out the Ments, which to me was somewhat of an odd play, especially because he didn't have Intimidate either, so it was it wasn't like a -1 Nidoqueen or anything, it was just a straight up Nidoqueen and just took out the Salamence really early. Slightly odd to me, but I'm sure Tup had his reasons. But as you said, just the Walkor coming through again, and Dan insisting he was bringing the offense this week, and Chansey and Mega Sableye still getting kills. So Nidoqueen did get 3, to be fair, but yeah, the Chansey Mega Sableye core again, showing why it is probably one of the best, if not the best cores in the GBA this season. So yeah, very solid match from Dan. Made the plays he needed to make. Not much more else to add on top of that. 2-0 victory for the St. Louis Rempardos. Moving on to the last match from the week. We have New York Mankeys and their coach Shady Penguin against the Long Island Regirockies and their coach Nips. Now, this is obviously a bit of a grudge match between best friends, especially as Shady drafted Regirock at the start of the season, which is Nips' mascot, and he brought it to this match because he said he would. He acknowledged in his video, he said, Regirock is not a good matchup against the Regirockies, but I am bringing it anyway, because he said he would, so he has to, and he said he might get criticized for, entertainment value over competitive usage, but he's still going to win, so it doesn't really matter. Shady picking up a 2-0 victory over the Regirockies, and Ambipom getting 4 kills in this match, which... to someone who has any experience in this format, you would think that Ambipom has been sort of not necessarily written off, but it's not a commonly seen high killing mon. It's somewhat regarded as a one-trick pony, but it really came through with the set that Shady brought with Fake Out, Return, what was it, Fire Punch, and something else that I can't remember right now.
Gunk
Shot, right? Yeah. I was going to say Gunk Shot as well. He managed to get the 4 kills with Ambipom. He really made the plays he needed to. Fake Out did a hell of a lot of damage to Nips' team, and it was just the right mon at the right time, pretty much. Fire Punch was there, although one of the plays that he made, which actually was quote-unquote a misplay, not really. He went for a Fire Punch on a Roserade, although technically Return would have done more, actually turned out massively in his favour as Nip switched out into Jirachi, which took a Fire Punch. So not necessarily a misplay, but a play that could have been better, actually worked out a hell of a lot in Shady's favour, and he played really well in this match. He acknowledged he wanted the Sticky Web up with Galvantula to try and get an Azelf sweep. He didn't get the Azelf sweep, but the Sticky Web coming through to make sure Alakazam and things like that were slower. Managing to take down the threats, Horlucha and Mega Altaria Roserade fairly easily, with not too many issues on Shady's side. Played a very, very solid game.
Yeah, I was looking at his team and thinking to myself, Shady's team that is, and thinking to myself, this almost looks like a B squad that Shady brought, because there's no Conkeldurr, no Garchomp, no Superior, no Mega Scizor. It's like all the mons you wouldn't expect him to bring, or like they would just be supportive mons that he'd bring on a team. And he still managed to get the 2-0 victory, even with, I think he said that he messed up on his melodic. It was supposed to be physically defensive, and took a high jump kick and almost died from Halucha. So I can't really add too much more than what you said. Sticky Web was very important for him because it slowed down the Scarfed Roserade and the Alakazam, allowing Ambipom to be the fastest thing on the field, barring a Zelf whenever that was on the field. So yeah, it was a solid victory for Shady. He played extremely well, even with really a team down. But with that, we'll move on to the league leaders. I believe that's what we move to next.
It is.
Yeah?
It is the league leaders, and still rocking first place after week 5 is Weavile, which still hasn't died yet. 10 kills, 0 deaths, obviously with a +10 differential, and Malvo once again showing he really knows how to use that thing. And if you use it right, you just pick off Mons and then you switch out. Weavile just doesn't die and it gets kills, which is exactly what it's done. 10 kills, 0 deaths.
I'm so upset that you get to go talk about number 3, but we'll talk about number 2. We'll talk about number 2, who didn't even show up this week again, and is still number 2, Mega Pinter, with 8 kills and 2 deaths. It didn't even show up this week, and it's still number 2. That's ridiculous. We'll move on. We'll move on to number 3.
Number 3. This makes me so happy. Aggron is in at number 3. 7 kills and 2 deaths with a +5 differential. Oh my goodness, Aggron. Cooper really showing he knows how to use this thing. Bringing a Scarfed Aggron last week, and this time just getting some kills with Iron Heads and things of that nature. Really a display of how well you can use somewhat underrated mons. Aggron's not a common one you'd find, at the top of the league leaders, but Cooper showing he really knows how to use that thing, and I think deservedly coming in at number 3.
It's such a strange season this season to see some of these mons be on the league leaders or what used to be the MVP race. It's very strange to see. So I'll fill through the last 6 real quickly. We have Melodic at 7 kills, 4 deaths. Victini at 6 kills, 0 deaths. At number 6, sorry, I forgot the numbers. At number 6, Ambipom with 6 kills, 2 deaths, 4 of them coming this week. Number 7, we have Crocodile with 6 kills, 2 deaths. Number 8, Mega Sableye at 6 kills, 2 deaths. Number 9 is Nidoking, getting 3 kills this week to bump him up to 6 kills, 2 deaths. And last but certainly not least, we have Chansey at number 10, 6 kills and 3 deaths. Like, that's just to see Chansey, Mega Sableye, Ambipom, Melodic for a relative part, Aggron and Weavile on there. They are all just, it's so strange to me because I haven't seen them be that successful in a GBA. But you know what? It's working.
Exactly. And it's, yeah, like you said, it's unusual, but this has been a crazy season, and that's what you can expect from the GBA. So, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's fun to see. Anyway, we are going to move on and look at how all of this has affected the conference breakdown. So, if you want, you can take the Sinnoh Conference. Diamond Division, shoot.
All right. You have your Utah Jasmine leading that with 3 wins, 2 losses, and a +14 differential, which is insane. Followed by the 2 and 3 New Orleans Pelipers at with a +3 differential. Can't do math. Then you have the Detroit Steel Wings with the last in that division, 1 and 4 with a -11 differential. It's still very wide open because John has to play Cooper again this season. But if he's going to have any chance of potentially making it to the playoffs, he has to basically just win out from now on. So that'll be something interesting to watch to see if he can continue to win out, especially with who his opponent next week is, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But you got anything, Dad?
Not particularly. I think he covered pretty much everything. So, moving on to the Pearl Division, we have, up in first place, we have the St. Louis Rampardo still undefeated. 5 wins, 0 losses, +12 differential. Followed by, closely in second place, the New York Yankees, 4 wins, 1 loss, and a +8 differential. And then in third place, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates and Old Man Tup with 1 win, 4 losses, and a -15 differential. So quite a big gap between third and second at this point. And it's really in Dan's hands to not make the playoffs at this point, because regardless of how many times Shady wins, Shady can get all the wins he likes. If Dan doesn't lose, he's making that playoff spot, and it's really going to be it's really important for Shady to keep winning, to put that pressure on, but it's up to Dan really to see who can make that playoff spot. It's in his hands to make it really, and Tup, it's looking unlikely at this point that he can make a scramble for those playoff spots, but he does still have to play Shady. I believe it's next week. So an interdivision match is always a big one. Can really swing a huge differential gap. So we'll see how that one turns out next week.
Looking like it's the power conference with a 5-0 team and a 4-1 team. If you look at the other ones, neither of them are, or none of the other ones are like that. It's really it's Shady's favor to at least lock up the wild card spot. But you also got to remember that he will play Dan one more time this season, so
Exactly.
that'll make things interesting. But we'll move on to the Hoenn Conference. In the Ruby division, we have the 5-0 Cincinnati Loudreds at +10 in differential, followed by the almost what seems like free-falling Winnipeg Aquajets at 2-3 and -3 differential, and you have the Long Island Red Rockies at 1-4 with -12 differential. This really opened up the wild card race in this division, because it seemed like it was just going to be the Loudreds taking that division, and then the Real Morel taking their division, and then Hank taking the wild card. But with his recent string of losses, it's actually going to make it a very interesting race for wild card in that one.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's closing the gap between the Aquajets and the Reggie Rockies, but if the Reggie Rockies can't pick up some more wins, then they're still going to be lagging behind, unfortunately. But moving on to the Sapphire division, the last division, we have up in first place, we have the Real Morel, 4 wins, 1 loss, and the +16 differential, the highest differential in the league at the moment. And in second place, we have the San Francisco Giants picking up another win this week. 2 wins, 3 losses, and a -7 differential. And then in last place, we have the, as of yet to get a win, Milwaukee Swordsbucks. 0 wins, 5 losses, and a -16 differential. Now, as you said, it really opened up the wildcard race in the Hoenn Conference, because not just with Hank losing, but with Gio picking up a win this week. Both of them on 2 wins, 3 losses, and a somewhat close differential as well, with Hank on -3 and Gio on -7. One more match that can completely change everything. We'll see how that turns out next week. But Steve, at the moment, looking like he's somewhat out of the race. But you never know what might happen. If Steve starts playing amazingly well, you never know what can happen. But yeah, I think that's about it for the conference breakdown. Now, we are going to move on to next week's matches. What you can expect in week 6 here in the GBA. Now, the first match from next week is actually a rematch from this week. We have the Cincinnati Loudreds taking on the Winnipeg Aquajets once again. So, will Malvo be able to pull off sub-bulk up Gallade once again? Probably not. But it will be very interesting to see if Hank can respond. So who do you have in this match?
So it's really difficult to beat someone twice, let alone twice in 2 weeks. However, I do think that with the fact that Malvone really only had to show one hand in order to beat Hank, and with Hank's probably relatively fragile mental state going on now, I think Malvone can probably take this one again, personally. I think he probably can. He only showed one trick of bulk up with Gallade. Other Mons, I don't even know if all the other Mons saw the field. I don't think so. I think there were 2 or 3 Mons that didn't even see the field. So I think he can probably take this one again. What about you?
For me, in this one, I really think that Hank can bounce back from this one. Because he's not going to allow that to happen again. And I think he realized in this one that Malvone brought things that were very weak to Mega Pinsir on the time he didn't bring it, so I could very well see him bringing Mega Pinsir to next week, and I think he's just going to prep a lot more for his whole team, as opposed to a suspected team that he might bring. and he's not going to allow Galle to do that sub-bulk up shenanigans again. He's definitely going to have plans for that. I think Hank can bounce back from this, and I think he's going to next week. I think he's going to beat Malvone's undefeated streak. I really think he's going to, because as you said, it's very difficult to beat the same person twice in 2 weeks. So I think Hank can take it in this one.
It's very true, very true. The next one is the Long Island Red Rockies versus the Utah Jasmine. Who do you have for this?
I think this was a relatively easy choice for me. It's very hard to go against the Jasmine, especially when they're playing the Red Rockies, who are 1-4 right now. And I think Cooper can really pull some shenanigans against Nips, especially with the way that Nips is playing, kind of a little bit rushed, not really thinking about too many things. I think Cooper can really be quite innovative with this one, come up with some sets that will really throw Nips off, and he might not necessarily think through a couple of plays, and Cooper can take advantage of that, surprise him with something, and just dismantle him once again.
I think that Nidoking is going to have a field day against the vast majority of the Red Rockies. So I have to also go with Cooper. I think that it's probably going to be, I'd say, a 3-0. I wanted to say 4-0, but a 3-0 with maybe 2 Mons not seeing the field for Cooper in typical style of Cooper's play. So that's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. The third match from Week 6 is going to be the Milwaukee Swordsbucks taking on the Detroit Steel Wings. Now, this match is going to be a pretty damn close one. Who do you have in this one?
Don't let me down, Steve. I picked you last week. You didn't come through. That's okay. I understand. But I think you can get this one. I think you can get your first win this week. I'm going to go with Steve.
Fair enough. It's very hard to choose between these two. I think that... I don't know. I could really see either of them picking up the win. But I'm gonna go with Steve. Screw it. I'm going with Steve too. Steve, you can do this.
Nice.
You can get your first win. Yeah, I think you'll be able to beat Crimson and the Detroit Steel Wings. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure with that one, but let's go, Steve.
The next is actually another rematch of Week 2. That is the Real Maril against the San Francisco Giants. Who do you think will win this one?
Oh, this is going to be difficult. See, in the last match, it was pretty damn close. Not necessarily on scoreline, but through the match, it was very close, going both ways. But I'm gonna have to go. I can't really go against Miguel on this one. Miguel, I think, I know he's won before and he showed his hand kind of thing, but I feel like Miguel is very creative with it, and he can come up with a different way to take down the Giantes, and they're going to have to do the same thing as they realized their last tactic didn't work. They're going to have to come up with something new too, but I feel like Miguel is going to be able to come up with, not necessarily a better strategy, but he'll come up with something that can take down the Giantes.
I'd like to see the Giants continue their winning, but I don't see it happening against Miguel. Again, Miguel's kind of had a almost D-League-esque run right now. It's unfortunate that really his one loss potentially came from not knowing the mechanics of the game, but I just see him prepping too well for these matches to lose them. So I'm gonna have to go with Miguel also, but. We will move on. Said move, so weird. We'll move on to this is probably the biggest match for me to watch because it has a lot of implications. That's the New Orleans Pelipers against the St. Louis Rampardos. Who do you think is going to win that one? I think I just took that 2 times in a row, didn't I?
I have no idea, but whatever. I don't know. It's very hard to pick between them in this one because the Rampardos undefeated as of yet. But the Pelipers putting on, even though they lost this week, they still have in my opinion, one of the best drafts, and they have the the power to break through the core if necessary, the so-called unbeatable core. I feel like John can potentially bring things that can break the core down if needed. I think he can, but I'm gonna go with Dan on this one. I think Dan is gonna come up with you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna be something slightly off the cuff. I think Dan is gonna come up with a really unique way to take down John. He's not gonna be doing exactly the same thing as previous weeks. He's gonna come up with something a little bit innovative. He's gonna throw John off his game, and Dan's gonna take the match. There you go.
You got a lot of vigor after you had that conclusion. I'm gonna go the opposite of you. Depending on if John preps to be aggressive. I think when he does that, like when he did that against Cooper, he comes out extremely well because his team, like you said, has so much firepower that it can break through everything. Like if you go down the list, almost everything is pretty much a wall breaker on his team. So I think that he'll be able to take this one, especially with things like Sylveon matches up decently well against Dan's team. And then, you always have Kyurem Black. I say this every week because I think that the Pelipers can win every week, but I don't see the Pelipers losing, even though obviously they've lost 3 times. So I'm going to go with the Pelipers. And a little side note, this is huge implications for playoffs because this would potentially give the first loss to the Rampardos, which would allow potentially Shady to catch up to him, or this would be a loss for the Pelipers, and I'm pretty sure that would eliminate them from the playoff contention. So it's going to be a very, very big game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, huge match, huge implications. Moving on to the next match. I think I'll take this one so you don't get 3 in a row. Greedy. This match is going to be New York Bankies and Shady Penguin taking on Old Man Top in the Pittsburgh Pirate Stars, a rematch from week number 4. So, do you have it going the same way or a different result this time?
Oh man. Again, I like Tup's team. I think that he has enough to be able to do good things. But Shady's been prepping really well. So I'm gonna, even though I went Tup the first time and he let me down, I'm gonna go Tup again because I think that if he can cut out maybe 1 or 2 of the mental errors, like letting Salamence die for no reason last week, things like that, I think that he maybe will squeak a 1-0 victory out.
Well, I think I am going to have to go the opposite. I'm going to say Shady's going to take this match because I think Shady's prep has just been too good each week, and he's taking the GBA very seriously this season, and I can see him coming up with a completely new team against Tup. I don't think he's going to bring copy paste from week 4. He's going to come up with something new, and his prep's been so good and his thought process is really well thought out that I think Tup is going to have a very hard time. It's not going to be a convincing victory. It's not going to be. I don't think it will be a 4-5-0. But I think he could get a 2-0 maybe against Tup this week.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. I mean, Shady has been prepping very well, but we'll take that off if you want to do your little cute little sign off thing for us.
Cute little sign. Okay, I see how it is. Thank you guys for watching / listening to this week's recap. Stay tuned for more videos coming out on the GBA channel. Thank you very much for. I already said thank you for watching / listening. I'm getting repetitive, but
we thank you for watching. I don't know if we said that yet, but thank you for watching.
And there was something else I was going to say. Oh, right, yeah, thank you for watching. But I've been RhyQuinn, he's been Adam, and you've been awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.